Let's welcome our audience. Welcome to the Ready Set Gemini podcast. I am Dan Moore, your host, and directly across from me,
Hey everybody, it's Frank Smithson here.
Frank. How is it? How's it going?
It's going good. Going good. Just celebrated Easter and had a nice productive weekend.
Nice.
I was running the whole time, and it always feels good, so
Yeah.
as much energy as I put in the weekend, I'm super rested, rocking the orange. Felt like I needed to give a little energy vibe out there.
Yeah, man.
How about you?
Yeah, good family time. Went up to my mom's and we had lamb.
Yes, I had lamb too.
We had lamb, or we had ham Saturday night. We had lamb Sunday. It was fantastic. Sous vide lamb. Oh, my wife did.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So good. It was bomb.
That's pretty cool.
Mashed potatoes, for sure. Yeah.
So I have a new words of wisdom.
Okay.
It's a carpenter's adage that's been around forever, and I'm wondering how many people have heard it. In fact, now that I say it's a carpenter's adage, what do you think it is?
Measure twice, cut once.
Measure twice, cut once.
Wow.
But I think that you can apply that to more than just measurements on wood, right?
Yeah. Think twice, speak once.
That works, sure. My buddies bought this property, and it's got beautiful acreage, and it had an older house on it, and it was, what is that when you, as is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they probably didn't get an inspector to go and look at it, but they dropped like $80,000 in trying to kind of gut this whole entire house and then rebuild it. They put a new roof on it. They ran new electrical because it was like an older home that had way old standards. They even had to take out the whole entire floor and raise pillars that were sinking. And this last storm came in, and they have like a seasonal creek that runs through their property, and the water it basically percolated up underneath the entirety of the house, and the whole thing is flood loss. It's condemned. So they dropped all that money in it. They have no flood insurance, right? And now they're trying to scramble to think, what can they possibly do? So they're like, okay, here's some different areas in the property. But I'm like, maybe you should get like a soil inspector out here first before you decide where to dump dirt and start thinking about building a new home, so you don't end up in that same situation.
Right. Erosion.
So, it's a small little thing, but if they would have maybe
Measure twice, cut once.
measure twice, cut once, they could have been in a better situation. So
Yikes.
it's good to apply it anywhere in life, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Thank you for that. It's good words of wisdom. I love that. I grew up around carpentry, so I get that 100%.
Yeah. But with me, I need to measure like 6 times, and I still cut twice. So whatever, it happens.
My quick story, my neighbor has giant sequoias in his backyard, and they grow really fast, right? The houses were built in 2004, so they're 18 years, almost 19 years old now. And along his back fence, they're beautiful, giant, they're probably 40, 50 feet tall at this point. And unfortunately, this is such a terrible story, so sad, but they cut the branch. Somebody came and pruned them or what have you, but they cut the bottom branches up so high that he now has a view of his neighbor, a really nice view of his neighbor, which was totally sheltered. And so he was real upset about it, but
And I don't think those lower branches come
they
back
never
either.
come back. No, super
Man.
sad.
So I just actually raised mine up. One of the things that he could do now that there's a lot of exposure is put some bushes underneath
what
there
I
or
was-
something like
yeah.
that.
But, again, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah. With trees, it works as well.
With everything.
Everything.
I don't think there's one thing that you can't consider twice before deciding
Yeah.
once.
Agreed.
All right. So first story here, we have a LA Times editorial talking about extreme heat and California workers.
Yeah. So it says outdoor laborers such as farm workers and construction crews have some protection under heat illness prevention standards that California adopted nearly 2 decades ago, requiring employers to provide drinking water, shade, and rest breaks to recuperate from the heat. But more than 1 million other workers in largely non-air-conditioned warehouses, factories, kitchens, and other workplaces remain unprotected, despite a legal deadline to have indoor heat standards in place by 2019. So They just California OSHA is had a public hearing. This looks like it happened back on May 18th, so I'm not sure. Wait, no, that's coming up. Sorry, that's coming up May 18th. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. And I guess the idea here is with workers getting protected, how does that, I mean, it's a good thing, right? You want your workers to be protected. We want to prevent injury, but how does that then impact all of the infrastructure that's in place for the attorneys that are maybe specialized in some heat illness type thing?
Yeah.
You know, that all of a sudden goes away. What does that do to the industry? I think that concept is probably ongoing all the time.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. And it points to the farm worker standards. And that was such an interesting story that I remember. I was in this industry when this happened. So it was in 2005. There was emergency rules to protect outdoor workers from extreme heat, made them permanent the following year, becoming the first state in the nation to do so. And I just remember that was such it seemed like, I don't know, we had this conversation about
like, no duh.
Yeah. And I think it's, I don't know, it's an interesting conversation to have, that, you know, take both sides of the story. So you're the farmer, and is it your responsibility to make sure that your farm workers have adequate shelter, adequate water, adequate
I'm on the side of 100% yes. Like, it just seems like common sense and common courtesy to make sure that the people that you're employed are being protected.
Yeah.
Right. And
what is it?
Super simplistic. Like, I get the pains where maybe there's lots of money that needs to get pumped into a system to be able to get a standard up to prevent injury. Right? We've talked about Fight Club 1,000 times over, right? There's like a mathematical formula.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about buying a Gatorade tub for $40 online and filling it with tap water and a, $89 pop-up tent from Walmart, like there's no excuses for that. Like, why does the government have to get involved?
I think that there's another side to this, and if I'm just putting myself in the shoes of the farmer, and I'm thinking, how is it my responsibility that you come to work hydrated, come to work with water so that you're not dehydrating yourself, come to work prepared to work. I'm just trying to take both sides of this story.
Sure.
Like, come on. I mean, is it really my responsibility if I'm the farmer to make sure that how far does it go? Do we spray him? Do we specifically spray him down with sunscreen? And got to make sure you got sunscreen on. And let me check your blood. How far does it go? Do we check your blood alcohol before you get to work and make sure that you didn't have a party night the night before? Yeah. It's going to cause you to die while you're working for me.
Sure.
So I don't think it's just like being a nice guy and doing the right thing.
Maybe a little slippery slope argument here would be, okay, we take that same mentality, and I have a machine where if you have one misstep in the operation, which, by the way, I trained you, hey, if you do this, you're going to chop your arm off.
Right.
And, every now and then someone chops their arm off. Well, I told the guy he should watch out. He might chop his arm off. Like,
yeah. I get that. I think that, anyway, I'm just trying to present all sides of this, but
sure.
I understand too. Like, that's a great example. You have a piece of a dangerous equipment. How are you protecting your employees from losing an arm, hand, whatever?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, heat's on the rise in California. California suffered through deadly heat spells such as the 2020 in 2020 when Woodland Hills reached 121 degrees. So this is the highest temperature ever recorded in LA County. And then Sacramento reached 116 degrees. So it definitely seems like, from a timing perspective, sooner, at least for California, sooner is better. Because this type of heat we don't anticipate is going to go away and may even get worse. So
Yeah. So we both were talking about jobs that we've had in the past where
yeah,
we were required to work outside in the summertime. I mean, every summer I had an outdoor job. Every summer I did fences, I did landscaping, I framed houses. None of those jobs required me or the employer to require protections.
Or maybe they did, and it was like a thing that they didn't worry about it.
I mean, and this was pre 2005, so I think that the mentality may have just changed over time a little bit.
Gotcha.
Under that, you know, from a heat perspective.
So it was farm workers that died. That's what kind of initiated that 2005.
2005 was probably a bad year for heat and
for sure. So new stats, workers' compensation data analyzed by CalOSHA show that claims involving heat stress rose during the 2010s, the hottest decade on record, with the number of cases related to indoor heat exposure rising from 138 on average in 2011 to 225, which is over just about doubling in 2018. There were 20 work-related heat deaths reported in California between 2010 and 2017.
Yeah.
7 due to indoor heat exposure.
Are we becoming less? Do we have as a people have less common sense that more people are dying because they're not preparing themselves? Is it literally because the heat has the hottest decade on record?
I think that's a big part of it, right?
I mean, is it too just that maybe we have better data collection? You know, it's such an interesting modern thing. How modern is this really? Like,
I mean, it's not super modern. Like, how long has it been since we haven't been able to make lefts at red lights? Like, I can make a left at a red light. Guarantee you I could do that. No problem without getting into an accident.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like what's the least common denominator is what they find, and they make laws around that.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about the pendulum. The pendulum kind of, goes in a direction. This is a regulatory pendulum that is swinging towards, protecting workers, whether they protect themselves or not.
And there's certain industries that I think it probably would cost a lot of money to protect from heat. The pipe fitters union, I think that's the union my buddy's in. He goes into giant pipes and he like welds like the inside seams, and it's like 150 plus degrees inside of those things. It's way hotter than like cooking an egg in Arizona, right, on a piece of metal. Yikes. Like he goes into those things, comes out pouring sweat. He puts TikTok videos up all the time. It's interesting to watch him. Speaking of that, we do have a TikTok video that's pretty interesting. There is,
we'll link it up somehow.
Yeah, we'll link it up. We'll get you the video. And it does seem like it's a little bit propaganda-ish the way it's put together, but essentially it shows a worker that's
steel worker
taking molten iron, running it through a machine to do whatever. The guy's in flip-flops. He's got like little thin cotton gloves on, and he's holding pliers, and he's just shoving these things through this machine with a t-shirt on, not even a t-shirt, like a tank top, like an undershirt. And he's just got a buddy that's like hooking gallons of water on him. That's how he's keeping cool and protecting himself. So, I mean, it makes what we have here, we should feel is a little bit of a blessing.
Oh,
right.
Oh man.
Just to put it into perspective.
Yeah. And lawmakers need stuff to do. They need stuff to do. Not to say this isn't important. This isn't important that we continue to protect workers, but gosh, it just does seem modern. I'm 2005, where farm workers finally, and I think it was totally deserved, finally got water provided, bathrooms provided for them as they're out working out in the fields. For sure, that was necessary. Indoor, I've worked also indoor places that didn't have air conditioning during the summertime. We lived in houses in the 80s that none of them had air conditioning.
I grew up in a house without air conditioning, but then again, I grew up in the Bay Area. It was always mild. It never got past 90, and now things are changing, right? So whole communities are going to have to adapt to, new weather. And I guess, the older people are probably more at risk.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess for our audience, feel free to comment on this, but, have you worked in a niche within workers' compensation where regulations have set the stage to help the injured workers to where that niche has disappeared?
Yeah.
And then what do you do?
Yeah.
Is it
Good question.
Is it a pivot?
Yeah. You wonder what the heat related injuries. Yeah, obviously they're tracking them and they're on the rise, so that's very interesting. Great. Well, any final words, Frank?
No, I think we summed it up pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Well, good talking to you. See you next time.
Awesome.